issues and challenges. I don't know how many women are present here. Not that actually the session is meant for women. It is actually meant for all genders, not just men and women, even the third gender. That also is included here. The question actually arises. Most of you must have been actually aware of this particular fact. What exactly is this gender sensitization is all about, right? Means you should be sensitive to the other genders. So, for example, if you're a man, if you are not actually sensitive to other men, we don't say there is no gender sensitization here. I'm not talking about actually, intergender actually kind of a sensitivity, right? That is, it is the modification of behavior towards the other sex. A man, how should actually respond to a woman? How should actually respond to a transgender? A woman, how she should actually respond to men and transgenders? That is exactly what is actually called gender sensitization. We have plenty of actually stereotypes here, right? So Indian society actually is a very, very, diverse society. We literally have actually all possible actually divisions, right? On varieties of actually grounds, caste, religion, gender, language, you name a thing, I'll tell you, on that basis actually we have divisions in this country. So here this gender actually discrimination is also a part of this particular problem. I'd like to just give you a little data here and what efforts actually have been taken so far that we'll discuss, and what you teachers can actually do to improve actually this situation. We look into it. And this behavior modification, I tell you, is a basic norm of equality. See, this is a country, I'll tell you, certain kinds of people actually are not treated actually as equal. Say, for example, take women. Their population actually should be nearly 50% of this country. But we have, according to 2011 actually census, it's only 48.5%. So 1.5% are less than like usual thing. And the percentage of men actually is 51.5%. This is one thing. So this is about actually gender. And we have about actually roughly about 10 lakh actually transgenders in this country. We do not actually have exact number, roughly about actually 10 lakh. Their situation is simply pathetic. We don't even actually treat them as men nor women. They are in a very, very dire situation actually of being indiscriminated. So therefore, what as the civilized, a person actually of a civilized society, we must actually observe is you must actually treat all of them actually equally. So this is a basic norm of equality. They are all human beings and they should be treated equal. That's exactly that. So what exactly is this treatment of actually equality? Treating them equally. Fairness of treatment of for men, women, transgenders according to their respective needs. This is very, very important. Women actually have certain other needs that should be respected. Transgenders actually have their own actually needs and actually weird things. You should respect that. Men have actually certain other things that should be respected. So this is exactly what is actually called fairness actually of treatment. So, for example, recently the government of India actually is treating the menstrual cycle period actually should be considered as actually a privilege of a woman, and she should be given actually some kind of a leave or something like that. All these days, I'll tell you, in this country, we never thought actually women, this menstrual cycle actually is a part of their actually physical body. And those 3 days or 4 days, 4 days actually of the physical actually changes should have been recognized, and some kind of actually an arrangement must have been made. So for the last actually 75 years actually of independence, we did not actually think about that. I'm just trying to say, what are these actually individual needs? Individual needs are this. This is exactly. And this transgenders actually, they have their own actually individual needs. And for many of men and women, I'll tell you, that looks very weird and something abnormal. Therefore, what we do is we try to treat them actually as like any other men or women. That is where actually things go wrong, right? That is. So one of the most important actually aspect of equality is each one of them actually must be given an equal access to all resources, right? There should not be any kind of a gender discrimination. Equal resources. So for example, look here, I find only men and women actually in this actually group of in this group. Why we do not actually have a transgender here? Because had we ever actually given some kind of a prominence, some 10 years, 20 years, 40 years ago, perhaps actually here we could have actually found some actually transgenders. Just because actually we did not provide that equality, not that actually only men and women actually are competent to teach. Even they are actually competent. The only thing is they did not actually get that opportunity, and there was no access at all. And these days, I'll tell you, if the Supreme Court had to interfere and grant them actually voting rights, and Supreme Court had to interfere and give them certain rights. What one must actually do, most importantly, is breaking these stereotypes. What is that breaking? Women are meant for cooking, delivering children, and taking care of actually home at home. This is what we actually think. An Indian woman actually should be at home, should be an ideal actually wife, serve the husband and the family. And if there are any, personal aspirations, no, that is not possible. That is one of the stereotypes of India. Now you're breaking it. You're breaking it. These days, we find plenty of women, I'll tell you, getting literally into every field of human activity. I'll tell you, in armed forces, in combat areas, I'll tell you. Recently, the Indian Army actually has provided an opportunity for women to, in fact, actually be part of combat actually duties actually on the border areas, right? So therefore, not that actually they are not competent. They are competent. The only thing is their competence actually was not recognized. So therefore, this stereotypes actually should be broken. And don't ever say men actually meant only for certain things. Men can be good cooks. Men also can actually take care of homes and take care of the children. Only thing is they must have actually been given a chance. If a man actually does it, many people actually would laugh at him. I'll tell you, this man actually is doing the job of a woman. This is exactly what is actually called stereotypes. That should be broken. And all should be given actually equal opportunity to do anything what they like, and that should be respected. Gender discrimination actually that we are going to discuss here is today with regard to discrimination against women, transgenders, and discrimination against even actually men. It is there, right? Earlier, there are certain temples in India, I'll tell you, where men are prohibited. So in Kerala Ayyappa Swami temple, women are prohibited. They went to the court, and the court actually ruled that actually women are also permitted. Only thing is women are hesitating. And the question actually came into picture. Why only women are prohibited actually from entering into the temple? But in India, there are many temples, I'll tell you, where men are prohibited. Unfortunately, no men actually ever actually, raise those actually issues, right? So like that, there are discrimination against women. There are discrimination against actually transgenders. There are also discrimination actually against men, right? So this actually should be looked into. Look, I'll give you some vital statistics. Perhaps actually you'll be able to appreciate it. Look at actually the population, sex-wise. If you take 48.5%, I already told you. This is about actually 2011 census. 2021 census actually we have not been able to lay our hands on. We will be knowing it. 51.5% actually is the population ratio of men. The female actually child population actually is much below that, because 5-10 years ago, there was actually a kind of a tendency that not many people wanted a female child at home. Everybody wanted actually a male child, because not that actually they don't want a female child because actually the female actually is a second-class citizen or something like that. A female child, a female in India actually faces plenty of actually social and other actually kind of discriminations, right? So there are actually problems for education, employment, marriage, and problem actually of domestic violence. All these things actually, dowry problems, all these things. So when all these problems actually appear before an young couple, they would rather actually prefer a male child than a female child, because they have to suffer along with the child. That is the reason. Otherwise, I'll tell you, no human being would ever say, because she's a female, I do not want. No, not like that. Because of these problems, right? So, and look at actually, it was 940, much earlier. It came down to, in fact, actually 920 these days. And coming to, in fact, actually families in this country, there are about 150 million, families, households actually in this country. Households I'm talking about, not actually population. Out of this 150 million actually households, 11% actually are headed by women. The remaining, I'll tell you, 89% are 89% actually headed by men. Means most of the families, I'll tell you, where head of the family will be always a man. But I don't know whether actually anybody is from Northeast here in this group. I find actually one distinct actually feature of the Northeast, where most of the Northeastern actually states where women actually will be the head. Usually a woman actually will play a very dominant role actually in Northeast, because that is the culture actually that they have developed. That's it. And coming to look at actually literacy rates, it is actually 82% males, and actually it was 65% actually 2011. We had to actually get the latest actually data with that as it went. Look, and some more actually, anybody actually from economics actually background, you will be able to know it. 70% poor people are actually women. Look at actually the whole world actually, take the graph, and 70% actually the poor people are women. Means, women actually have been driven to a particular corner. Actually, they are made to, in fact, a kind of a life, which certainly not actually equal to the others. And 67% of the hours of work they do, total actually 100 working hours, 67 actually of the total work hours are done by actually women, but only they enjoy 10% of the women. I'm talking about actually the global kind of a thing. In India, it is much worse. It is much worse. And they own only 1% of world's property. This is something I'll tell you really tragic. Their population percentage is about 50, but they own, I'll tell you, only 1% actually of the world's property. And you might say, sir, if the husband owns, it means the wife also owns. If that is what the argument you try to put, somehow actually it is not very convincing, but because once the owner consider himself as a owner, he has an absolute right actually using the property as he likes. He might consult his wife, he might not actually consult his wife, right? So therefore, the ownership actually gives a special privilege, right? That privilege actually is missing. And usually, women actually get 40% less wages than men. Forget you people, you are all in organized sector. There is no discrimination actually in a salary structure actually with male and female. It's all same. Come to this actually unorganized sector. I'll tell you, organized sector actually you'll be able to find in India about actually 20 to 25% of the labor force actually is in organized sector. Remaining 75% actually in unorganized sector. Their discrimination is so rampant, I'll tell you. Say for example, a daily worker actually who comes home to do work, or the field, agricultural field to work, women actually get less wages, men actually get more. And there are certain actually kind of works, I'll tell you, earmarked for men, which they demand more. And certain of the works, I'll tell you, men don't want to do it. And they say it should be done by women only. And if the women do it, then they are actually given less work. And look here, another important thing, 60 to 80% of food in developing countries are produced by women. This is something really astonishing. 60 to 80% actually of the food in developing countries produced by women, because, you see, I tell you, in the field, agricultural fields, not that actually men do not work at all. Invariably, you find actually more number of women actually working. 60 to 80% of the food actually in the world, developing world actually is produced by women, but eaten by actually 100% of the population. And 10 to 20% actually of managerial jobs, only 20% of the men. You go to any of the corporate actually world, you see actually Indian corporate world only. How many MDs do you find? How many CEOs you actually find who are actually women? Here and there, you can actually count in your fingers. And most of actually them are men only. Not that actually women are not capable. Only thing is they have not actually been in this kind of an opportunity. That's it. And less than 5% actually are heads of state. Heads of the state. Less than 5%. Then America could not even actually see 1% as women president in the last 200 years. Whereas India could actually see some 50 years ago. Not only Prime Minister, but also the president. We had as an opposition leader, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, and several actually states had chief ministers, women. America, the most so-called actually developed democracy. In the last 200 years, I'll tell you, they could not actually elect one president. But an Indian woman had to go and actually become vice president. So this is another actually point you must actually take note of, right? And going further, school entry, right? It was 88% in 2005. And because of our Sarva Shikshana Abhiyan and various other actually programs, so the school entry actually went up to 96%. And this is actually total school entry I'm talking about, not actually women's entry, right? Total school entry. The number actually, the entry of women actually, girl child actually is quite less. And one more thing you must actually notice, women are still actually bound by patriarchal norms. Men dictate as to what should be the norm of behavior for women. Women themselves actually cannot. So for example, take your own actually family. I'm not saying that actually every family, most of the families, the patriarchal actually norms prevail. Usually a man actually will dictate terms, and a man actually will take decisions, and men will actually impose actually kind of impose these duties. And financial control actually is with men, and all these things. Usually that is. And look at actually, I'll give you this is slightly old data, right? Now actually there are substantial changes, but still actually persists. They say, 2008 actually when economic survey was actually conducted, 18% of women, I'll tell you, in India did not actually even go to the nearest kirana shop to buy something. 18% of Indian women did not go. They had to send a man or their actually male children or some old man at home actually should go, a man, to buy something actually from the nearby shop. Women actually were not permitted. And 50% of women actually did not travel alone. They had to have some kind of a companion. Either the husband or the children, even a small, I'll tell you, 5-month-old male child actually will do. It gives a kind of actually, assurance that actually I have a male person actually with me so that I can actually travel. Or one old actually man, at least if he accompanies, the woman actually, they would think that actually there is some kind of actually assurance. So nearly, in fact, actually 25%, when they were sick, they could not take a decision. When they were sick, I'll tell you, men of the family had to take the decision whether she should go to the doctor or not. Men should actually take the decision. This is the economic survey result I'm giving you. And 25% of marriages, women did not actually meet their husbands prior to the marriage. You please actually think, most of you must have actually met your husbands before you married, right? But in India, about 25% of women, way back in 2008 and 10, I'll tell you, did not meet their husband at all because parents and in-laws and others actually had seen each other. They decided, they took a decision and said, he's the right person for you. And the girl had to agree, and actually they got married. And only after the marriage, actually, they could see, get along, understand the other partner, and just go ahead, right? That's it. And, see, now I think this must have been actually drastically changed. When the survey was conducted, only 2.2% of women actually drank alcohol. That was long back. I'm sure I'll tell you this is much, much bigger now. It's not 2.2%. I've seen actually metropolitan cities. During actually our corona periods, when there was lockdown, when the lockdown actually was opened, when the people actually were allowed to buy essentials, we could find actually huge queues actually before liquor shops, where women actually were standing to buy actually liquor. No, I'm not actually saying it's something bad, women actually have come out of that kind of actually what the culture of certain things actually meant only for women. So only 2.2%. And 10%, little over 10% chew pan masala. I think it must be more than that because actually most of the village women do actually chew pan masala. And smoking, it was just 1.5%. Nearly 1.5% actually Indian women smoked at that particular point of time. Then the question arises, who control actually women more? Rich people or poor people? Who control actually women more? Rich people or poor? Many people think that actually rich people control their wives, right? No. It is actually the poorest people actually control the wives control their husbands, because when you say actually in this poor class people, in slums, etc., they work very hard, both husband and wife actually, morning till evening. And in the evening, I'll tell you, both sit together to have a drink or smoke. The wife actually is an equal partner. Sometimes actually a better partner than actually the husband. And the husband actually has absolutely no say at all because they work equally, they earn equally, they share the joys equally. There cannot be any kind of a thing, right? Therefore, it is a thing. And agriculture sector, I'll tell you, in India, it employs actually largest number of women, I'll tell you. So this is one job, I'll tell you, where you do not require any kind of a qualification. Skill is not required. A physical labor. And this is the easiest actually job one can actually aspire for, right? So that 86% actually of the agricultural labor force consists actually of women. So this is about it. And moving forward, come to other things. So we have nearly 80 ministers actually at the center. Less than 10 actually women. This is the most. And there are 89 MPs out of 544. 543 MPs in this parliament, in a parliament. Women actually number only about 89. Ministers less than 10. then you should have actually raised an issue. Why actually we have nearly 50% of the population. We vote actually like men equally, on equal basis, but only white 10. I'll tell you, earlier it was much less. Look at actually Karnataka, recently elections were held. There's only one woman actually in the cabinet. And that woman actually holds women and child actually portfolio. I'll tell you, women and child portfolio is specifically meant only for women. She is not actually eligible to hold any other portfolio. But it is not. So, for example, we have one of the finest actually finance ministers, Nirmala Sitharaman. In what way she is actually less able than any other actually male members? So this is the problem. And look at actually the Supreme Court. It has never actually crossed 5. There are 35 actually Supreme Court judges. We have at present actually only 3 women judges. The entire actually Supreme Court, right from 1950 till now, has got actually about 11 or 12 women judges only. Out of 150 or 200 actually so far the judges actually the Supreme Court. Hardly anybody. And we yet to see actually women chief justice in India. We've not been able to see a women chief justice in India. And come to in fact actually the other courts. There are about actually 650 to 700 actually high court judges. We have 22 actually high courts in India. And there are about actually 650 high court judges are there. And out of that 650, I'll tell you, there are only about less than actually 60 women judges are there. This is another thing. And coming to other aspects, coming to the other actually crimes. So look here, the cruelty by husband and the relatives. See, I'll tell you in this country, about actually 90 lakhs crime take place. 90 lakh crimes per year they take place under IPC and various enactments. 90 lakh cases. Roughly about actually 5 lakh cases actually are committed against only women. Only women. Out of this actually 5 lakhs, 43% actually are committed by the family people. The husband, the in-laws, the mother-in-law, the brother-in-law, co-brother. I'll tell you, these are the people. Within the family structure, I'll tell you, they commit actually these offenses, right? 43%. Remaining actually 56% actually committed by others. So therefore, the violence against women, I'll tell you, is at home. Principally at home, nearly 50%. And when the woman actually is outside the home, another 50% actually she is exposed to that kind of problem. Look at actually the other actually statistics. Kidnapping and abduction, about 10% of the total offenses. Rape, about 10%. Dowry deaths, about actually 3.7%. Because Anti-Dowry Act actually brought in 1961. And every year actually hundreds of actually dowry deaths actually were taking place. Our laws actually have been tightened so much now. It is so I'll tell you, grave now. Within 7 years after the marriage, if at all, if a woman actually says, I've been harassed by my in-laws for dowry, the in-laws will be arrested. They will not be granted actually a kind of bail. And they have to prove that they are not harassed. And only then actually he could actually get bail. Supreme Court recently passed, observed 70% of the dowry cases actually are false. A woman actually goes to the police station, says actually my in-laws actually are harassing me. When the police actually inquire and actually subsequently file charge sheet, in 70 to 80% of the cases actually they are all acquitted because they did not harass. So every law actually is being misused. And there is no exception that women do not actually misuse the law. When we Indians actually have misused our constitution, you think actually we will not misuse actually other laws of this country? Certainly, right? That's it. And sexual harassment, about 3 to 4%. So there's a law actually in this country which says, if there is any kind of a sexual harassment at workplace, there's a separate law which actually says that person actually should be punished, right? Well, about actually 4% of the women who work, there is a sexual harassment. 4% of the women. So that is another thing. Now, what are actually the usual kind of actually violence we come across in India against women? I'm not actually talking about other countries because each country has got its own actually variety actually of violence against women. If I ask you, where exactly, in fact, wives are battered most in the world? Will anybody answer me? Where women are battered most? Where women actually physically tortured by their husbands most? Anybody? You can raise your hand. Anybody? Huh? Tell me, Vinay Kulakarni avare.
Sir, educated people only.
No. I'm talking about country. Which country has that distinction where husbands
India.
actually batter every day wives? Don't say India. Don't denigrate India. You know which country? It's US, United States of America. Very, husbands actually are very cruel. That is why actually divorce rate actually sometimes 60 to 70%. Use Finland and all, I'll tell you, divorce rate is 90%. You know, divorce rate in India? Indian average is 1%. But in Bangalore, it's about 22%. Delhi, about actually 28%. Right? About actually, see, I'll tell you, average Indian divorce is 1%. Because, you know, in India, there's one more thing you must actually understand. Marriage actually is a very complex thing in India. No, unlike actually in the West, love at first sight, divorce at first fight. No, that is not there in India. If you look at a woman, you like her, okay, marry, no problem. But if you fight actually with your wife, no, you can't run to the court actually to get a divorce. No, in India, to get divorce is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult in the sense, the Indian ethos simply say that actually you marry to remain married, not to divorce. That is not the concept actually in the West. You marry because you like her. And you can divorce because you dislike her. No, I'll tell you, whether you like or dislike, once you take someone as your partner, you'll have to live with her. Marriages are made in heaven in India. You don't get married here, I'll tell you, only perform the ceremonies actually on the earth. Your marriage has already taken place actually in the heavens. You'll have to simply perform the obligations, right? So it's extremely difficult. And we have a firm divorce law in India. Under Hindu Marriage Act, I'll tell you, there are very few grounds for divorce. You know, very few grounds. There are only 13 grounds in India to get the divorce. And those grounds actually must be proved beyond all reasonable doubt, where the judge actually must be fully convinced. Only then he will actually grant divorce. Otherwise, he will say, no, don't worry, go and live with her. No problem. Now, a man actually once, had a very quarrelsome wife. And she used to quarrel, all the time. So he was so much fed up. And he consulted his friend what to do. His friend, he gave a wonderful actually suggestion. Why are you worried? You actually divorce this wife and marry someone actually who doesn't quarrel. So this idea stuck actually in his head. He thought actually there can be a wife who doesn't actually quarrel. That kind of an idea actually went into his head. Then he was very happy. Let me actually divorce this actually quarrelsome wife and actually get married to another actually woman who doesn't actually quarrel. He was very happy. The friend actually was very happy. They went to an advocate. The advocate actually was very much eager. Why are you worried? You want actually divorce? No, I'll get you. And you can marry. Make arrangements for the marriage, he said. All the three were in a hurry. They filed a case in the court of law for divorce. But the judge was not in a hurry. So the case went on and on. And on and on. And actually after 25 years, actually divorce was granted. After 25 years. This man said, I don't want you keep it yourself. These are actually divorce actually things happen in India. It is not that easy to divorce. Right? Anyway, be that as it may, several forms of actually violence are actually committed in India. I'll quote some of them exclusively for India. I'm not actually talking about actually violence in other countries. Dowry violence. I'll tell you, dowry actually is such a common thing. I don't know whether there are any unmarried people here in this group or not. Right? I don't know. If there are any, okay, God bless them. Right? So if any person, an idealist, he says, I will not take dowry, I want to marry, and if he, with this kind of idea, he ventures out to marry, I'm absolutely doubtful that actually would ever get a girl. Because no father-in-law would ever actually give his daughter to a man who says no dowry. Because he suspects that man. This man is actually not taking dowry, there must be something wrong with this man. So I do not want to take the risk and actually give my daughter to this person. Okay, when everybody actually is expecting some kind of dowry, if you reduce your price, your chance of getting married actually is still remote because you are demanding a very little money. Who demands little money? Someone actually has got some kind of a severe problem. Chances are very remote. Therefore, you will be compelled to take some kind of a dowry and do it. Dowry is a system, I'll tell you, rampant in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. We are all brothers, I'll tell you. We live actually in the same geographical locality. We share many other things and all our actual customs, etc. I was doing actually a small kind of a research on dowry. Where else actually dowry is prevailing? Then, I came across that actually dowry is also in US, Canada and UK. I was wondering what nonsense actually, what is this actually? Even Americans take dowry, Canadians take dowry, British dowry. Then later on I came to know that they are not actually Canadians or Americans, they are Indians who are settled in America and Canada. You send Indians anywhere, I'll tell you, they carry their baggage. You send them to moon, they go with the baggage. In moon, they want to marry means where is the dowry, they'll ask. This is the problem actually with Indian thing. So these are the countries. And other countries, no. There are other things. Next is acid throwing. So acid throwing, I'll tell you, is a kind of a heinous actually kind of a crime. No, I'll tell you, in India, about actually less than 1,000 actually victims are there, acid throwing. In 2013, actually, we amended our law and made actually law very, very stringent, very stringent. Any person actually who throws acid, minimum 10 years of imprisonment. And, reasonable expenses up to 10 lakh compensation should be given. You must have actually seen some of these actually acid victims, acid attack victims. I have seen. The life actually is a living hell for them because their own family members actually will not be able to see face to face. Forget actually family members. She herself cannot actually see her face in a mirror. And that is the kind of shame she has to carry till her death. And for somebody's actually mistake, right? It is a very, very, and we have a very strict actually law. And this acid throwing actually in India is very minimal. But in Cambodia and other actually Southeastern Asian countries, this is rampant. This is rampant. So you want to wreak vengeance? Throw acid actually. Usually where the acid is thrown at face, not any other part of the body. You must have seen, na? Acid is thrown on the face. And that actually becomes, I'll tell you, a lifelong actually misery, where the woman actually has to carry that kind of a face. And it's honor killing. Honor killing is not exclusive. It is slowly, in fact, we are acquiring it. Middle East and South Asia, I'll tell you, honor killing is the. In India, honor killing actually is confined only to intercaste and interreligious marriages. Right? Intercaste and interreligious marriage. See, it is interreligious, you can understand. There are hardly about actually less than 10 religions. And quite a number of people actually do not subscribe to any kind of religion. Nearly 12 to 13%. And these days it is increasing. Plenty of the Westerners, I'll tell you, they are not subscribed to any religion. They're spiritual, but they don't actually follow any particular religion. So that's it. In India, there is about 4% of the people actually do not subscribe to any religion. They say they are not Hindus, nor Muslims, nor Christians, nor Jains, Sikhs, or whatever it is. They are Indians, they do not subscribe to it. So honor killing actually in India, usually, it happens in Karnataka also. If a high caste actually girl marries a low caste actually man, then it is the honor of the family actually is compromised. So the father of the girl himself actually kills the son-in-law and the daughter because she has sacrificed actually her honor in the society. And I see this honor killing actually is considered by Supreme Court actually as murder, punishable actually up to death sentence, with up to death sentence. So in Middle East and South Asian countries, there are rivalries, gangs, different actually kind of social strata. If there is any kind of actually group relationship, the honor killing comes into it. Because they want to keep. Even in Japan, I'll tell you, there are plenty of cliques, cliques in this gangs and groups. So one gang actually must subscribe to that particular norms of that gang. If they ever actually cross over to another gang, I'll tell you, this gang actually will kill this man because this man has crossed over. It's different. So that is one. Honor killing actually is at another actually extreme. In India, most of the honor killing victims actually are women. And accidentally also become men because a daughter actually of a high family, belong to a high family, gets married to a low class actually person. This man most probably kill actually his daughter, and if the son-in-law is available, he will actually chop his head off also. So most of the women actually suffer this kind of problem. And female genital mutilation, I'll tell you, is another actually very heinous, very, very cruel practice in the name of religion and custom, where genital mutilation actually takes place. There are varieties actually of genital mutilation. Genital mutilation is done only to suppress sexual urge. A sexual urge actually is a natural urge. When a person, man or woman, actually attains a particular age, those glands actually fully become optimal, as a consequence of which actually need some kind of a copulation, etc., etc. That's a natural phenomenon. But we have built a kind of a social structure where marriage is one of the social structure to, in fact, actually avoid this kind of actually, immoral kind of a relationship. But many times I'll tell you, beyond marriage, I'll tell you, this kind of relationship actually do exist. So every religion actually abhors it. No religion will ever actually respect an extramarital kind of a relationship. But law, absolutely no problem. Law, absolutely no. Two consenting adults actually can cooperate, have sexual relationship. Two consenting. But recently we made a change. I mean, we still actually not made a change, but a new law is coming where a married woman is not supposed to, in fact, actually, with consent, have a relationship with another man. So this was the ruling. For a brief period of time, this rule actually was not there. Now again it has come. A married woman cannot actually have a kind of a relationship with another man. And it's an offense. But woman is not punished, man is punished. So it is called adultery, right? 496 actually of IPC, where man is punished, not the woman, in case of actually this adulterous intercourse. Be that as it may be. Coming to this actually genital mutilation, even in India, a particular actually certain other religious groups, in order to suppress actually the sexual urge of the girls, it is not with regard to men and boys. It is only with regard to, what they do? Their private organ actually is slightly sliced off, or damaged, or cut off and stitched. I'll tell you, these are all, I'll tell you, in the form of ritual that it is. The third degree of thing, where actually the upper part of the genital is cut off and literally stitched. Many times actually these girls at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it is done. And that is a lifelong injury the girl actually has to suffer. And the girl will always curse actually her private organ, because of this particular nonsensical organ, I am suffering actually this kind of a physical actually injury, she would say. And forget actually about the sex, the life itself actually becomes disgusting. And we do not actually permit in India what is genital mutilation. But in spite of this, I'll tell you secretly, the very minimal kind of a thing I'll tell you, where the upper part is chopped off or it is injured, etc., so that you should not think about actually sex, because it should be painful. They try to make it. But in Africa, it is worse. It is Africa worse. There is what is known as in Africa called breast ironing. Breast ironing is, when the breast actually becomes prominent actually after puberty, they think that actually it is attractive actually point for men, right? Therefore, if it is not prominent, you can actually prevent the attraction. They press actually with hot iron the breast so hard for a very long time, so that actually breast actually can be suppressed and flattened. Now, I'll tell you, all very, very cruel and primitive. It happens. Substantial actually countries in Africa, they practice it. The girls, you believe it or not, I'll tell you, every girl in one or the other form, I'll tell you, either because of the religion or because of the social traditions, they suffer actually throughout their life. And many of them actually curse for having been born actually so. But in India, we are lucky, and the situation actually is not that dire. But there are actually certain groups of people who think that actually they are orthodox, they must actually follow. These are the things I'll tell you, they propagate and violate this. So this is most. And next is marriage by abduction. It happens actually in Ethiopia, Central Asia, and other Caucasian actually countries. In Africa and all that, Ethiopia, Central Asia, etc. See, for example, take in Punjab and Haryana, the sex ratio is, very, very, depressing. 860 girls for 1,000 boys. 860 girls for 1,000 boys. About actually 140 actually girls less than the required number. If you don't prevent it, I'll tell you, a day will come where actually there will be 500 girls for 1,000 actually boys. If you want to marry, the choice is very much limited. Because, so there is one girl for 2 men. if you take actually, that is the reason why in Punjab and Haryana, from Orissa and West Bengal, the girls are imported. Because in Punjab and Haryana, I'll tell you, the number of girls actually are absolutely less. I told you, 850, 860. Hardly they find actually girls to marry. Therefore, import the girls actually, or get the girls actually from Orissa and West Bengal. And they marry. And they keep that wife till actually she gives birth to a male baby. Once she gives birth to a male baby, the wife will be transferred to some other person who is not married, so that actually she can give birth to a male baby to the other man. So the wife also will be transferred like property to bear a male child. Look, these practices actually are happening in 21st century, I'll tell you, in India. This is a problem. And marriage, I'll tell you, is marriage a right in India? Is marriage a right? Is marriage a right? Anybody? Is marriage a right in India? You're all married, I believe. Therefore, whether it is right or not, you are not worried. But what about those actually unmarried people? If you say India is a very populous country, for next 5 years, marriage is banned. If someone actually in the group is not married, you will accept it? No, sir, you are married anyway, your problem is over, whatever it may, because he still thinks that marriage is something very great. There is a saying in English. Marriage is like a toilet. Those who are inside, they want to come out. Those who are outside, they want to get in. Those who are inside, they know actually how difficult it is to be there inside. But people who are outside, they want to get in. If they want to get in, okay, get in. Only after getting into the toilet, you know what it is. But inside you are there, no, he wants to get out. He can't, because you are already bound by actually the marriage traditions. Be that as it may. So many a times I'll tell you, in Ethiopia, Central Asia, the girls will be simply abducted and taken away. In some of the tribal areas in India, I'll tell you, the marriage ceremony is just like this. A boy and a girl, when they come of the age, if they like actually mutually to marry, one fine day they simply disappear into the forest. When they disappear into the forest, the entire tribal community thinks that actually marriage is over. When they come back from the forest actually after 3 days, they'll be given a rousing welcome. If it is done actually in a civilized society, in urban area, they'll be sent to police station straight away. But actually in tribal areas, I'll tell you, that is a kind of a ritual. You just run away to the forest. When you come back, your marriage actually ceremony is complete. So, see, marriage actually should be always actually with consent. You got my point? Any civilized society must actually accept that marriage should be consent. Abduction and stealing actually a girl from the family and running away with a girl is not actually marriage, it's a forced relationship. And next is abuse related to payment of bride price. So, in India, it's about actually dowry. In other places, I'll tell you, it's bride price. They call it actually bride price. Means, in some places, I'll tell you, a bride has to be given a price. You want to marry a girl means you'll have to pay a price. What you call dowry, where actually the girl side have to give money. In some other places, I'll tell you, the boy side actually have to pay some money to the girls to get married. Right? So there will be always, when this financial actually issues come, there will be always this kind of a problem. Right? This is about actually, these are the things. Look here, domestic violence. I'll talk about actually what kind of problems actually women face. 18 lakh girls, I'll tell you, the last actually 2 decades, 18 lakh girls actually have disappeared. Right? They have died. 18 lakh girls, I'll tell you, in the last 20 years because of these problems. And in 85 to 2005, in 20 years, I'll tell you, 1.5 lakh actually births that actually was found in pregnancies, they all actually ended up actually in abortion because there was a kind of a violence against the woman. And the moment actually woman comes to know that actually that the child is going to be a female child, the child is killed. Immediately after birth or before birth. So that is why we have a very strict law now. So sex determination actually is prohibited in India. A real time actually, whenever a pregnant woman goes to a scanning center actually to get tested, automatically I'll tell you that data will be transmitted to the central grid, and subsequently, if the child actually is aborted, killed, and happens to be a female child, there will be certainly a case because it is a female child, so it must have been actually an abortion deliberated to avoid actually female children. So we have strict laws. In spite of that, I'll tell you, plenty of actually female feticide actually takes place in this country. And over 40% actually of women, where in 28 states, more than 1 lakh actually women were interviewed. And 40% of the women, what they said? They said actually they're being beaten by their husbands. 40% of women. So if you take that average, I'll tell you 40% of women who are present here also should come within that particular bracket. What is that? 40% of women actually are being thrashed by their husbands. And 51% of 75,000 people who are actually interviewed, they said actually assaulting their wives, actually there is nothing wrong in it. The husband said, if not me, who else should assault my wife? Neither cannot assault my wife. I can assault. There is nothing wrong in it. 51% of the people out of 75,000 actually were interviewed. They said like that. About 50% actually women said, there is nothing wrong with the husband actually beats. Look at actually the women attitude. 54% of the women say, my husband beats, there is nothing wrong in it. If not me, who else will he beat? Okay, let him beat because he's a husband. This is it. And in a hospital, I'll tell you, in a single year, actually, 450 female actually feticides actually were aborted. Right? And after this law coming into existence, it is prevented. Yeah. And there is now a trend in India, the latest actually 2019-2021, female actually percentage is rising because there is a liking actually for the couple to have a female child. This is a trend, I'll tell you. Slowly, in fact, actually, coming to existence, there is a shift in the trend that actually acceptance of actually girl child in the family. And there is actually an increasing actually number of couples preferring that one. And, this child feticide is prohibited in this country according to 1971 actually anti-abortion laws, 1971. Legal termination of actually pregnancy was prohibited. Only for 5 reasons, the termination of pregnancy is permitted. In all other circumstances, it is not permitted. But illegally, plenty of actually people abort their children, either before the birth or immediately after the birth. What are the ways they choose? First, smearing opium. Just born baby. Smear opium actually into the mouth of the child. Child actually gets high and dies after some time. Just born baby. Smearing opium actually to the mouth of the baby. Or tactical maneuvering of the umbilical cord. When the child actually is being born, the umbilical actually cord is tactically maneuvered so that actually child actually will be born dead. Some of these actually expert old women actually they know how to in fact actually make a birth a happier occasion, either a live baby or a dead baby. They knew actually the techniques, they do it. Or what they do, they want to kill actually because the baby happens to be a female baby. They drown actually in the pot of milk and kill the child. Just drop the baby into a pot of milk. Drown the baby dies. Or put actually paddy into the mouth of the just born baby. The moment actually paddy gets into the mouth, the paddy swells and the baby actually will be asphyxiated actually to death. Or salt will be. Millions and millions of girls, I'll tell you, every year actually go missing. Millions actually of girls, right? So this is the problem. And domestic violence, I'll tell you, is rampant. You believe it or not, Sati, William Bentinck actually abolished in 1825. British government itself actually abolished Sati system, 1825. More than actually 200 years ago, nearly 200 years ago. But still actually it prevailing. There are 140 Sati temples in India. In Sati temples, I'll tell you, Sati is encouraged. Even now, I'll tell you, as recently as actually 4 or 5 years ago, actually we could find plenty of Satis taking place. Means where the husband dies, for whatever reason, the wife should follow. Either jump into the funeral pyre or commit suicide. Why it is done? It actually, once upon a time, it was followed as a tradition because the husband as a soldier actually dies in the war. And when he dies, she becomes a widow. The winning actually, the army would come and actually rape this woman or take this woman actually as their wives. To avoid this kind of an honor, actually, Sati system came into picture. When the husband died actually in the war, the wife actually also would jump into the funeral pyre and actually sacrifice to keep the honor. But subsequently, this kind of a tradition actually became such a perverted kind of a tradition, I'll tell you. Under whatever circumstances the husband actually dies, the wife should also die, right? Now actually it has been, made as a kind of a custom for an ulterior reason. What is that ulterior reason? Deliberately, women actually are forced to commit sati because to grab the share of the property. If the brother is dead, no children, wife is there means the other brother should give the property, a share of it actually should be given to the brother's wife. So if the brother's wife also dies, I can have the full share to grab and to restrain her from developing illicit relationship. An young actually woman who actually loses her husband, and in India, remarriage actually is not that socially accepted. And if she remains unmarried, there is a possibility of she developing an illicit relationship is there. She develops a kind of a illicit relationship with others. So this is a dishonor. So therefore, kill her or make her commit sati. Feed the avarice of priest. The priest, I'll tell you, when the ceremony is conducted, they have to be given some kind of actually an offering, fees, etc., etc. Therefore, in order to grab fee, they compel and actually enforce sati because the husband dies, you should do this, otherwise you'll go to hell. So that they make the wife commit and get their actually fees. And to escape the social, other than appease the jealous husband on their deathbeds. When the husband dies, leaving an young, beautiful woman, she will be always doubtful of his wife. After my death, my wife will actually marry somebody, will make friendship with somebody. So this kind of actually what doubt will be always there. That is why he says, after my death, my wife should also commit actually suicide so that she can join me in hell or heaven together. So husband actually imposes a condition and dies. And then there is this social stigma of widowhood, Widows, many of the social actually ceremonies, she cannot take part because actually she is a widow. This stigma is there. And many people think that actually if I die, I'll go to the other world. I want to go to the other world along with my wife. So if I go alone, no, that's not, therefore I want to take my wife also there. So make the wife actually commit suicide. These are all nonsensical kind of actually excuses, which actually, encourage people to commit suicide. And, last year, more than 3 lakh women actually were kidnapped, raped, molested. You believe it or not, in 2017, 40,000 actually rapes are committed in India. 2012, Nirbhaya rape actually took place. All of you must be knowing it in Delhi. After that, actually, we made a very stringent law, right? Nirbhaya, after we amended actually 4 laws, made actually very stringent. And after that, actually, stringent law in 2013 and one more amendment in 2018, it has come down to 32,000. For a population of 140 crore, the most populous country in this world, 32 rapes actually take place, about actually 75 rapes per day. Delhi alone sees actually per day 6 rapes even today. 6 rapes per day. And you might wonder, sir, 32,000 is a big man. I'll tell you, in America, for a population of 32 crores, 3 lakh rapes take place. 3 lakh rapes. So, see, this is, I'll tell you, all over the world, I'll tell you. Only thing is, certain countries is less, it's more, it all depends actually on social and actually legal conditions of that particular. Then you might ask me, sir, the life of a woman actually is so pathetic, horrible. Given for almost actually 1 hour about a sordid state of the woman. You might ask me, you are a law teacher, what law has done? You please tell me. It's a legal system, the country is not actually keeping quiet. No other country has as many laws as we have. There are 11,000 pieces of legislation in this country. You believe it? There are 16,500 courts. 16,500 courts. There are 2 dozen actually high courts and 1 Supreme Court. Right? 22 lakh, I'll tell you, advocates. 22,000 judges are operating in this country. Our budget for judiciary is nearly 40,000 crores. In spite of all this huge infrastructure, still 6 crore cases are pending. 6 crore cases are pending before the various courts. Look at the kind of an infrastructure that you have done. And we have huge number of cars. I'll give you some brief actually look, because I have another actually 15 minutes time. I think I must give you some time for question and answer also. We have one wonderful actually piece of legislation recently passed, protection of women from domestic violence. 50% of women, I'll tell you, are prone to domestic violence at home. Husband, in-laws, actually, they use violence against, including father, brother, etc. We have a law in 2005. And the victim actually need not go to the police station directly. She has more than half a dozen actually avenues open, she can help. The legal system actually will provide actually protection, prevention actually from continuation. The Indian Penal Code has actually dozens actually of provisions to protect women from rape, outraging the modesty, voyeurism, stalking, plenty of actually new offenses we have. And comes actually the most important Dowry Prohibition Act 1960. I'll tell you, 60 years ago, we made this law. The question actually you might ask me, sir, this law came 60 years ago. Has dowry come down? You must answer it. Has the dowry actually come down? It is increasing by the day, I'll tell you. I have seen actually many of the High Court judges demanding dowry while getting their actually sons married. While getting their actually daughters married, they offer because there is a demand from the other side. So dowry actually is a kind of, it's in blood, bone and marrow of actually the Indians. They say an average dowry is 30,000 rupees. Means a man who's nothing is on the street. If he wants to get married, he says, give me 30,000 minimum. If you ask why, means I'm getting married, I'm a man. This is a nonsensical kind of an explanation. So we have Dowry Prohibition Act where giver and the taker both will be punished. Both will be punished. But you must actually enlighten me. If you have seen any case where a person is punished only for dowry offense, only for dowry offense, I have not actually come across. Dowry issue comes into picture only when your son-in-law is not satisfied with the dowry that you have given, still pesters your daughter for more dowry, some kind of a problem created, then the father-in-law files a case against the bank saying that he is demanding more dowry. Nobody files a case that someone is demanding dowry. They will file a case that actually demanding more and more dowry. And next is preconception, prohibition of child marriage. 40% of child marriage in the world take place in India. 40% of world's child marriage take place in India. So we have a law, came to existence in 1925, amended in 2006. We have prohibited actually child marriage. This is a strict law. Say, for example, if you get an invitation card and you go for the marriage and you bless them, get photographed, videographed, and come back. If one of them actually is a minor, you will also become actually an accused. You can't simply take the invitation, go for any marriage unless and until you what? Make sure that both bride and the groom actually are not underage. And if at all, if they are, you will also be held responsible because knowingly went and actually supported what? A child marriage. And these days, chowdhuries and various other actually bodies also should make sure that actually no child marriage takes place actually in their premises. Preconception, PNDT Act they call it. Means the sex of the child actually should not be detected. We have actually technology which clearly says much before delivery, the child is male or female. For medical examination and treatment, etc., it is done. If it is misused actually to know the sex and abort it later, if it is a female child, severely punishable. 1994, this act came into picture. And Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, Abortion Act, I told you. Only because till 1972, 71, any kind of an abortion actually was totally prohibited. Even an unmarried girl actually becomes pregnant, she had to deliver actually. But in 1971, actually, we amended for various reasons. One, for the health of the women. Secondly, to prevent actually overpopulation. For these reasons, we actually made this law. We have 4 or 5 actual circumstances where abortion is permitted. And in other cases, it's not permitted. Nextly, sexual harassment of women at workplace. I told you, nearly 50 to 55% of women actually are harassed at workplace sexually. And harassment is not just like making an attempt to rape or something like that. A subtle harassment is also sufficient. You got my point? So this law came into existence in 2013, but the Supreme Court actually had instructed the union government to make a law actually to protect women actually in workplace. In 1996, it had made. But after 13 long years, 97, after 13 long years, the union government actually passed this law. And in 2013 and 2018, we amended actually our criminal law to enhance the punishment of people who commit violence against actually women. And there is actually this POXO Act. Now, POXO Act is protection of children from sexual abuse. See, I'll tell you, children, age 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., they are also in fact sexual assault. You believe it or not, in our brothels, I'll tell you, in India, an estimated 4 crore actually active sex workers are presently working. Active sex workers, the rough estimate actually is about 4 crores out of 140 crores. That is a very conservative. Out of this 4 crores, I'll tell you, more than 40% of them actually less than 18. Less than 18 means nearly 2 crore. And 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old girls actually will be able to find in brothels working 24/7, selling their bodies for few rupees. The children should have been actually in school learning. They are selling their bodies actually for their livelihood. Either they are driven to it, or circumstances actually force them to suffer. So, in order to prevent that, this POXO Act actually came into existence in 2005. Okay, this is it. And look, these are other major offenses for which actually our legal system actually takes care of it. One is rape, which I already discussed. Now we have a very wide actually definition of rape. Since I don't have any time, otherwise I would have actually given you what is the definition. Marital rape. In India, I'll tell you, marital rape actually is not recognized, but partially the Delhi High Court actually is recognized. Marital rape is where husband is committing rape against woman. I mean, his wife. Because in Delhi case, what happened was the husband actually was so cruel with his wife while having a sexual intercourse. It was so cruel, it was worse than rape. The judge was compelled to say, how can we restrain from saying that actually it is not rape? Because, in a rape, I tell you, this kind of a violence is also not committed. In this marital actually sexual union, when an offense of this nature is committed, it is nothing but actually rape. But anyway, it was a divided opinion. Still, it is not law. Before you make marital rape a law, it's extremely difficult. You should be very, very careful. Otherwise, there is every possibility of actually misusing it. Huge actually opportunity to misuse it. Domestic violence, I've already spoken. And honor killing, dowry violence, acid throw, I've explained it already. Forced marriage, I've already abduction, etc. Stacking is actually one offense we have added in 2013 in our Indian penal code. Stacking is actually going behind a woman actually and proposing her despite her refusal. You are after a woman, a girl, and pestering her to in fact actually accept his proposal when she is not interested. If she is interested, it's none of our business. Grown up man and woman will tell you, if they agree to each other, we don't have any business, because that is perfectly lawful. When one of the parties refuses, I'll tell you, it is everybody's business. Law actually, that is stacking. Means, following a girl or pestering a girl actually too. Genital mutilation, I already explained. Sexual harassment actually is once again. Sexual harassment actually is a kind of an act, I tell you, where you express your sexual actually intention, overtly or covertly, to other person, and thereby actually harass. Right? There's a wide definition. I don't have time. Human trafficking actually is another major problem. I tell you, in India, at least actually 4 to 5 lakh women actually are trafficked every year. India is not just a destination of trafficking, it is also origin of trafficking, but also transit of trafficking. Means girls will be imported to India. Girls will be exported from India to other countries. Girls actually from other countries pass through India. This is trafficking. And mistreatment of widows. This Widow Remarriage Act we passed. A woman actually loses her husband, and she is free to, in fact, actually take the second wife. But the Indian society actually has not evolved as much as we see actually in the West, where she can divorce and after death, she can take second wife, third wife, second husband, third husband, second. But in India, I'll tell you, though the woman actually is interested, the society somehow actually, not encouraging this. And accused of witchcraft, witchcraft actually, don't say witchcraft actually in this 21st century has disappeared. No, no, no. It is increasing by the day. And some of the TV channels actually propagate it also. And we also watch it and sometimes actually fall prey for it. And state violence. State violence means using the law. State actually tries to curb actually the freedoms actually of people. So it could be woman also, right? That could be also. Now, legal privileges. I'll tell you this and I'll conclude so that actually you can ask me a few questions. We have another 5-10 minutes. There are 15 kinds of people, I'll tell you, in this country. They are eligible for free legal aid. Free legal aid means you will be given legal advice free of cost. You will be given a lawyer free of cost if you have a legal problem. Your court fees will be taken care of by the government, not only at the trial stage, at the High Court and the Supreme Court also, right? This is given actually for 15 categories of people. Women are included. If you have any kind of a legal problem, existing or potential, right? With your family or anybody, simply walk into Legal Service Authority. You will be provided all these things. Right to privacy while recording your state. Say, for example, you want to go and actually, for an offense actually that is committed against you, want to give a statement actually to the police. Your statement actually should be recorded by a woman only. And it should actually be confided, should not be confided to any other person. It should be kept as secret. And FIR, you must be filing a first information report. When an offense has taken place against a woman regarding a sexual offense, there's a time limit, to file a case before them. So, for example, your last year actually purse in Dasara this time. You came to see Dasara. Somebody has actually picked your purse. And there was actually 1,000 rupees, you lost it. And you can't, you will not go to the police station because it's town is crowded. You go back home. Next time when you come for Dasara next year, then you go to the police station. Sir, last time when I came here, my purse was picked. Will the police actually register the case? Certainly they will not register because there is a time limit. But as far as actually offenses against women, I will tell you, there is no time limit at all. A woman can actually file a sexual assault actually case even after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years also you can file. Right? And the complaints, you can also file a complaint actually through email. You don't have to go to police station. And no woman will ever be arrested after sunset. She has to be arrested only during daytime. Women cannot be called to the police station, in certain offenses. Section 326, 354, 376. Women cannot be called to the police station. The police officer must come to the house. And her identity should be protected. So, for example, a woman has been actually the victim of rape. Her identity should never be revealed. If at all, if anybody reveals, that person will be sent to jail for 6 months. Doctors have no right to it. Say, for example, regarding issues, health issues and various other things. Ultimate actually consent or right to decide should be given to women. A doctor or husband, any other person cannot actually take a decision on your behalf. Whether you should undergo this kind of an operation, surgery, should be only at your actually request. That is your right. Your husband, your mother-in-law, father-in-law, everybody says, do it, do it. If you say no, it cannot be. And there is a responsibility on the part actually of the employer to protect actually the honor and dignity of all women, right? This is about the issues and actually challenges that actually this is but I have, regarding transgenders, there is this thing. I'll share this PPT with you. It is not a copyrighted matter. If you find actually, please go through that one also. Use this data, create awareness. This awareness is not just meant for women alone, because women will be always the target. And there will be always actually a person who actually is responsible for this. Therefore, it should be for all men, women, and transgenders. And we, men and women, regarding transgenders, it is high time we modified actually our responses to them, or our perception of these transgenders. So with this, I think I should conclude. And now you can actually ask questions if at all, if you have any questions, right? We have another 2-3 minutes. You can actually ask any questions if at all, if you have any.
Hello, am I audible?
Please tell me, madam.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Suresh. It was a really wonderful session where we got a lot of awareness regarding the gender sensitivity. One question which, as an observation come into the mind that from long many years, there is a lot of laws and the amendments to that. But as a lay person, if you try to analyze the news which come into the newspaper from my childhood days up till this now, the content has not much changed. Even you also mentioned in your talk that in the current times, the dowry has increased. So, one hand, we have the laws which protects the women, which brings in the more gender sensitivity. Whereas when it comes to the practice level, okay, we are not seeing much of the changes. In fact, at some level, the changes we are degrading actually. So, do you think that the gender fair kind of the upbringing or the child rearing practices are very much required in the current scenario because the law alone cannot do such kind of a justice?
I absolutely agree with you, madam. And one more thing, usually one should not actually make a mistake of thinking that law is the ultimate panacea for all these problems. If you think that law alone actually can solve the problem, you're mistaken. I'll tell you, I would say as a teacher of law for the past 50 years, and I've seen actually law in theory as well as practice. I think, it operates to the tune of 20 to 25 or 25% or 30%. The rest, I'll tell you, if the dowry has to be stopped. No, the dowry, one should not take dowry. That kind of feeling I should actually start from the heart of the person actually who thinks the dowry is bad. No, who are the people who take dowry? You think actually they're uneducated?
Somewhere it should be the part of, the child rearing practices because gender will learn from there, from the society. We are born as gender is a social construction, and that's why it is creating a lot of trouble actually.
See, I'll tell you, all these things actually should start actually at the family level. Because I see varieties of students actually from different parts of the country and other countries. I can see how actually sometimes actually the parents, I don't actually blame all the parents because they will have 1 or 2 child only, and they love their children so much. And as a consequence of which, they do not know how to discipline them or upbring them with certain of the good values. So this kind of actually attitude actually on the parents is also is responsible for all these things. So therefore, I would say, I'll tell you, law is only one of the instruments through which actually we can bring about the change. There has to be a structural change actually in the society, and the mindset actually of both men and women must actually undergo a change. And somehow I'll tell you, in the last actually 75 years of independence and increasing of actually the literacy rate, somewhere I'll tell these things actually instead of diminishing, they're increasing. And I would find, I'll tell you, somewhere I'll tell you, our education system also is contributing actually for this kind of things. There are plenty of other factors also. So I would still actually say at the end, law alone actually cannot solve this problem.
Agree, sir. Completely agree.
Anybody else?
Hello, sir.
Please. Any one of you, please. Yes.
Sir, now in Karnataka, they have introduced one scheme, that is Griha Shakti, where women can travel anywhere in Karnataka. So, is it possible that women can have overall knowledge while roaming here and there? Is it the same?
No,
It's
no,
the same.
I understood your question, sir.
All
I
over the
understood your
India.
question.
There may be possibility that the 50% of the travel can be increased, right?
See, I'll tell you, sir, there are writ petition actually filed before the courts because every woman actually is eligible actually for free travel. Under Article 14, this actually becomes a kind of violation of equality. I'll tell you whose money it is. It is taxpayers' money. I and you actually together. I'll tell you, if all women actually are made to travel free, someone has to bear the cost. Who is bearing the cost? All of us bearing the cost. And there are plenty of women, I'll tell you, who can afford. They can afford actually the charges. So the question is, they should have actually made a kind of a classification saying that only these certain classes of women actually are eligible for free travel, etc., etc. But in blanket, actually, I do not want to go to the flip side actually of this benefit. You have been seeing actually plenty of video clippings how actually women are fighting to get into the seat, and after getting into the seat to grab a seat, huge actually halabala actually is going on. But still, actually, the courts are not interfering because it is an issue of policy. It's an issue of policy because courts can only interpret law. But, only legislature actually can take a policy decision because they are directly elected by the people. So that is why I'll tell you, democracy actually works only when people actually know what democracy is. You see, these are all, I'll tell you, misuse actually of democratic actually powers where people actually do not know. So huge amount of money is being spent for a kind of actually a trip. Say, for example, children cannot go to school, old people cannot go to hospital. You actually, men who are required actually urgent travel cannot do it because women actually are taking a jolly ride actually in that. These things I'll tell you, court also cannot interfere because, there is a limitation for the court. Because the government, that is why I'll tell you, while electing the government should be very cautious. Blindly, we can't actually elect. Unfortunately, I'll tell you, many people, and recently, most of you must have actually taken part actually in Karnataka, the election process. Whether democracy, did you see democracy in Indian elections? I'm sure I'll tell you, most of you must have not actually seen democracy, but rather you must have seen money flowing. Where literally, I'll tell you, they bought the votes. So these are the problems, sir. And these problems cannot be solved actually by the legal system. Society has to change. Srinivas, right? We'll pray for that.